Richard. How much of that news from Japan is going to filter through and drive European markets today?
It's likely that there's going to be some positive feeling on the back of it. It removes in some ways another plank of uncertainty, something that the market is looking forward to, because what we have seen over the last week or so is that I think Ben Bernanke wondered just how many other ways he could say the same thing, namely that tapering wouldn't happen until such time as the US economy is back on its own 2 feet, and also as and when it is done, it will be done on a gradual basis. So that's along with the Japanese news has allowed investors to focus back in on corporate earnings, because we're really ramping up the number of corporate earnings on both sides of the pond this week.
Indeed we are, and one of the big ones out of Europe today was a Swiss bank UBS beat the street, profits higher than expected. Markets seem to like it, shares are up 2.5%.
Yes, that's right. It's managed to come to some sort of agreement with the US regulators over some supposed mis-selling, although it's not actually quoted a figure. But perhaps most promisingly, in terms of its flagship private banking arm, it reported inflows for the period of 10 billion francs. So this is kind of following the positive US banks news that we've had so far, and should have a positive read across for the UK banks, which will start reporting their H1 figures in a couple of weeks' time.
You mentioned the Fed earlier, Ben Bernanke. You're talking about earnings now. What's going to be the driver for the week here in Europe? Is it going to be taper talk or earnings?
I think it's fair to say we have now switched very much back to earnings. There's some interesting ones coming along this week from the States in particular, the likes of Facebook and Ford, McDonald's today, and also Apple tomorrow, because if you can summarise the US Q2 reporting season so far, it's not totally ramped up to full speed, but we've had a few coming through. But if you can summarise it so far, it's been fairly disappointing for the tech stocks and fairly pleasing for the banking stocks. So we'll continue to get a flavour of US corporate health in the next few days.
We've been talking for about 2.5–3 minutes and we haven't mentioned the Eurozone crisis, but Portugal is still in focus. There'll be no snap election, but many analysts, including Goldman Sachs today, reckon that a second bailout is on the cards. Is that playing into investors' minds today?
News like that is obviously never helpful. I think there's an increasingly pragmatic view that it's the larger, in terms of percentage of the overall GDP countries, the sort of Spains and Italies, and even to some extent the Frances, which do cause some sort of concern. So the Portuguese news will not be particularly helpful for sentiment, but on a standalone basis, unlikely to be market moving.